Wizard101 in 2024. If I had to guess, there's probably a lot of people that clicked on this video wondering how in the world this game is still alive in 2024. But not only is the game very, very alive, there's also a lot of stuff coming this year. So I thought I'd make a video catching people up on what to expect out of the game this year. There's a lot of stuff that Wiz is doing different, and even things that we can expect as early as this month. So it's kind of crazy. Without further ado, let's get right into it. I think the first thing that's gonna make 2024 vastly different from other years that we've had on Wiz is the fact that they're doing a gigantic update in January. It's kind of weird. I still don't know how I feel about it, but basically, right, in December, when they released the whole world of Wallaroo, they said that parts of it were incomplete and they were going to delay it to early next year. Well, it is next year officially, which means any day now we might see a new dungeon drop that drops a bunch of gear that's actually going to affect the game like crazy. I think that announcement caused a lot of divide within the community because on one hand, there's a lot of people that are like, yo, this is like, you know, I pay membership, I'm like, you know, paying for this game, and you're not even giving me a complete update. And yet, I can't help but think about the fact that not only was Wallaroo really, really beautiful, it was a long world, and I don't mind that my content is given to me in a gigantic form in December, and then there's even more in January. I actually think it's easier to consume content when it's done in smaller bits and pieces. So in some ways, yeah, it's kind of an L, but in a lot of ways, it's gonna make 2024 a crazy year. We can experience content at a pace that maybe is a little bit less overwhelming. The next thing that I think is really gonna make 2024 crazy different is they're gonna add even more spell elements. Now, it's been a little unclear on exactly when the Arc 2 spell elements are coming, but there is a gigantic chance that these are going to be game changers. So if you guys haven't played in a while, or if you just don't know the history of this, basically when they started adding spell elements to all of the spells in Wiz, they started with the simplest ones, the rank 1 through 6 spells that every wizard knows on their own school. And the early vision of these spell elements seems to be continuing for what should be another set of spells. So basically the way these work, you get spell elements by doing anything really under the sun, by questing at the appropriate level, by farming things like raids, by farming bosses, by opening packs. And the idea is, as you collect spell elements, you can choose one of two paths. One path being a damage-heavy path, and another one being a utility path that lets you do stuff with spells that you've never been able to do. Now, these spell elements, what they really symbolize to me is a way to play Wiz that's way more complicated than what we're used to at all. Right? Like before, you know, for a lot of people, Evil Snowman is just a spell that does damage for 3 pips. Now, with spell elements, not only does it do damage, it can also clear weaknesses and turn them into shields and traps. While I'm excited to see what the rank 7 through 10 spells will look like when they have spell elements added on, I really hope they also take this as an opportunity to really, like, let players understand what everything does in the game. I think a big reason why spell elements are even, like, kind of controversial to begin with is because when you make the game complicated without explaining it, it kind of leaves casual players out. And because these are pretty directly involved in the way game balancing works, a lot of these spell elements have actually changed over time to make some schools less competitive, make them less broken sometimes. So when things are changing and you're also updating into those changes, I think it should become really, really prioritized that the player understands what cards do. So while this is hopefully a year of a bunch of new spells, what I also do hope is that there's explanations added on for what every spell does. I want a world where I can scroll over a spell, maybe right click on it in combat, and it tells me with words, not symbols, what a card does. There is reason to believe that that type of update is coming soon. Whether it's in 2024 with the Arc 2 spell elements, that's unknown. In the summer, we should be getting a new raid. Now, raids are still something that seems to be like, you know, a work in progress in a lot of ways. When you do a raid, you get rewarded with gear that is extremely powerful. The amulets from the raid give the most resist in the game right now. And for a lot of schools, the gear from the raid gives up pip chance for the most important stat of all in PvP, Shad chance. I would argue also that the best wand in the game also drops from raids. They've added so many things that drop from raids, and yet this past raid was full of problems. The raid came out in a form that was pretty glitched, meaning nobody could really do it, so test run wasn't enough for anybody to actually be like, yo, this is how it's broken, this is what needs to be fixed. Earlier in 2023, there were 2 separate controversies revolving around the raid almost within a week. There was a glitch that basically made it so that you would just pip fail if you entered a raid. You would have like a 60% pip chance instead of 100. And then not long after that, there was a glitch that allowed people that entered the raid to see the final chest, and people got suspended for exploiting that chest. And in my opinion, all of this was done in the name of difficulty and an extremely, extremely unique endgame experience. Now, I don't want to trash on the raid like crazy. As someone who's put in dozens of hours, I actually think it's not a bad thing to like experience for the first time. Especially now, people are getting into raids now that the gear seems to be something people want, and it doesn't actually seem that bad, even for people that are new that are picking it up. It was really learning how to beat it for the first time that posed a serious challenge for everybody else. But what I will say is, if it needs to be a little bit more polished, and it trades off some difficulty for that while keeping its uniqueness, I think that would be the golden, we'll see what the raid looks like. I hope it just feels fun to play even after you fail at it. I feel like, you can say a lot, but this raid, after a while, it got really annoying. And finally, 2024 should be a very, very different year simply because it's a little unclear what the next big expansion is going to be. After questing through all of these worlds, we are officially at the end of yet another arc, so we don't know who the next enemy right now is even gonna be. Now, a lot of people are theorizing that in January we will be given an idea on that because they're basically, they're gonna leak it basically. But I think a super interesting point is that last time that they were between arcs, they actually took a year off from making a world, and they actually put out a group of dungeons called the Catacombs. Now, while the way you got the gear from the Catacombs probably wasn't popular, I want to say a lot of people loved the Dragoon gear that came out of that update. And it's unclear to me as a player, as someone who's in this community, what they're really gonna do. I feel like I've heard that they're gonna make a world like usual. I've heard that they're not gonna. I've heard very conflicting things. But in a year that's probably gonna be chock full of every other update under the sun, maybe this will be a good time for them to polish things that really need work if they're not gonna release a world. And it's definitely not a doomsday situation for them not to release a world, because we saw how successful the Catacombs were. There is still gear from that dungeon, that set of dungeons that I still use, like the amulets. So this year, there's a real chance that Wiz has an opportunity, and they might even take it to go outside of their comfort zone for their biggest update of the year. Lots of exciting things upcoming, y'all. A bunch of y'all that were returning players wanted me to make like a recap of 2023, which I did for a video, but I also wanted to talk about all the things we can expect in 2024. It should be one of the wildest years, in my opinion, that Wiz has ever seen. So if you haven't played in a while, I'd recommend hopping on. And also, since it's a new year, I'd love to hear what y'all want to see on this channel. Like, just like, as a plug for y'all to give me suggestions in the comments. I'm down to make guides, do walkthroughs, do different PvP strategies, whatever the audience is feeling, just let me know. DM me, let me know. I want to make this the greatest year ever for this channel, just as much as I feel like the game's gonna have an amazing year for them. As always, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Let me know y'all's 2024 predictions in the chat. What are you excited about that's already been announced? I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, see y'all soon, and yeah.